because those mechanisms are also in play as well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have a friend that he distinguishes us from other species, and he says that other species don't think, so that separates us from all the rest of the animals. And I assume what he meant was they don't really think, they just react to their environment. You would disagree with that, right?
Yes and no. What you're describing is sort of the core expression of the standard social science model. That what separates human beings from other animals is that we've evolved past the point of instincts, and we use reason and thought to guide our behavior. That's the standard social science model, basically. That very few instincts are operating. What evolutionary psychology would say, and what modern research in psychology suggests, is that much of our thinking is post hoc. We don't behave based on conclusions that we made from thinking rationally, and in fact, we behave before any rational thinking occurs, and a lot of rational thinking is post hoc and justification for doing what we're doing. Now, certainly, you can have rational thought that leads to a particular behavior, but here's the other view. And this is something that William James talked about at the turn of last century. He's a functionalist psychologist, philosopher. He said, no, you've got it backwards. What separates human beings from other critters is not that we have fewer instincts than other critters, but we have so very many more instincts. And those instincts gives us our behavioral flexibility. You can think of an analogy with golf clubs. Anybody play golf here? I love golf. If you go on the golf course, you and I go on a golf course, and you have a bag with 3 clubs on it, a driver, a 6-iron, and a putter. Those are specialized tools. But I'm going on the golf course with a full complement of clubs. Driver, fairway drivers. I've got my 2-iron, my 3-iron, up to my 9-iron. I've got a pitching wedge, got a sand wedge, and I've got my putter. We go out on the golf course. Who's going to play a more flexible, interactive game of golf? Me with my full bag of clubs, or my friend with 3 clubs? Yeah, you can answer. Well, the idea is that what allows my behavioral flexibility in the environment is not that I have fewer clubs than my friend. I have so very many more clubs. And then I can use some of these clubs in ways that they weren't designed for. I can fish out a ball because I've got these clubs. So I can now use them for new things that they weren't originally evolved for. So what your friend is suggesting is a respectable position. In the end, it might be true. Evolutionary psychology says it's got it backwards. What separates us is we have so very, very many more instincts, not fewer.
Well, where does Sam Harris fit into this particular subject?
That's a good question. My guess is Sam agrees that human beings are a product of evolution. And critics of evolutionary psychology also agree human beings are a product of evolution. They don't necessarily agree that evolutionary psychology has the story right. So people like Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, the Four Horsemen, they're all evolutionists. Richard Dawkins is sympathetic with this point of view. So is Daniel Dennett. I have no idea where Sam Harris or Christopher Hitchens, what they feel about it. All right. I know I'm talking a lot. I want to show you some more stuff. All right, evolutionary psychology. With respect to what has evolved and what hasn't evolved. And and this is a very short list. People, psychologists, not all, of course, but most psychologists agree that, well, this is not so controversial in terms of what has evolved. Our capacity for language has evolved. Not so controversial. The mechanisms that are in play when we perceive the world evolved, not so controversial. Even maybe some basic emotions that we have, they seem to be universal and cross-cultural, not so controversial. When I say not so, I'm not saying it's devoid of controversy. There is controversy. But what is very controversial, and what evolutionary psychologists want to claim, is that what evolved also include your social competencies, the degree to which you are sensitive to social structures, social hierarchies. Who are you going to share a meat with? Who are you going to be a friend with? Who are you going to trust? When you're not going to trust them, who are you going to pick as a mate? What's a good mate? When are you going to be aggressive? When are you going to be cooperative? The kinds of emotions you have for your family versus that emotions that you have for a non-family appears to be, and the claim is evolved. You have feelings for family that you don't have for non-family. But can we leverage that? There's a burning house. Your daughter's in the house. She's in the window. She's looking out the window. You come to the house. It's on fire. You have time to go in and save her. But you notice her little friend is in there too, in the room to the right. You only have time to go in and save one of the children. Your daughter or her friend who's asleep over. You don't have any other time. Make a choice. What do? Who do you save? Why? So? You're not thinking of that. See, this is part of what I mean by we find ourselves having emotions and motivations that is very difficult to articulate why we, and if I keep pushing you logically, I'm sure you cannot come up with a rational reason. What if she has two friends and you have time to go in and save two friends? Or her? Who do you save, the two friends or her? There's 3 friends. There's 10 friends. Who do you save? Sarah, who's saying, Daddy, Daddy, save me? Or her 10 friends who's saying, Mr. Jones, save me? You have time to save people in one of the rooms. Who do you save? And why? Where is this coming from? Culture? You were just conditioned to favor your child? The idea is that you have emotions for family that you don't have for family, and then I can leverage that. I want you to identify with my group. Brother? Sister? I mean, Pinker points out that the family, we have such strong emotions for the family that the family is a subversive unit. It's a subversive unit to both religion and the government. Because you need to put God before your family. We have to have laws of nepotism because I guarantee you, you're going to favor your wife, your brother, your mother, your son because they're your family. They're a subversive unit. We've got to control them. Yes, sir?
And I don't know your terminology, Earl. What is kith?
Non-kin.
Non-kin? Okay.
And this is what really pisses people off. Yes, sir?
I was just thinking about Jane Goodall's book, In the Shadow of Man. She describes
Yeah.
how this one chimpanzee is carrying a dead one on her back. That it's, her child that died. I'm just wondering, that's kind of like the real family thing.
Absolutely. I mean, you see homologs, you should expect to see similarities. I don't know how you can observe bonobos, chimps, gorillas, orangutans without seeing a reflection of your own humanity. And in fact, Jane Goodall and other people who are naturalists will reveal that there are very strong similarities in terms of how these groups behave with respect to how we behave. And that is exactly what you would predict from an evolutionary point of view.
Right, I think like from evolutionary psychology, isn't that like a physical piece of evidence for...
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that's part of the scheme that evolutionary psychologists do is compare species. Our species to other species is one of the strategies.
Could you play devil's advocate and give me a way to, or give me a point of view from someone who would disagree and would say, no, that's just whatever else?
Well, you're being anthropomorphic. What you're doing is you are imposing what your beliefs and your desires into this animal. And in fact, the animal is just responding reflexively. It's the same kind of argument that some behaviorists have said with respect to animal language acquisition. Do gorillas, do they actually have language when they sign? Well, it depends on who you ask. Behaviorists, I think, rightly point out, you have no right to talk about underlying cognitive mechanisms until you rule out basic stimulus response kinds of mechanisms, that they aren't just responding non-consciously. But when you rule those out, you have no choice, which is probably what happened with the famous Skinner-Chomsky debate in the late 50s on language. Yes, sir?
We had a lady that took in a cat into a small office from outside, and was really scared initially. So she had a cat psychic come in and talk to the cat and find out whether it wanted to stay in and other questions. And I'm just curious to know what you think about that. Really.
The universe is a strange place indeed. And science saved my soul, actually. And the grandeur of science has revealed things about the universe that I could never possibly have come to understand by the observations from my own senses. Really? Space is warped? Come on. There's that many stars out there? Surely you jest. Muons, gluons, sharp particles. We have vibrating strings. What the heck is an electron? I've never seen one. Have you? What do I think about that? I think it's crazy. Really? Show me the mechanism. Give me some evidence. I'll consider it. In the end, that's the position I take. I just need the evidence. Belief has nothing to do with it. It says, I am confident that there's something going on to the extent that the evidence is there. And if the evidence suggests something else, I'm obliged to throw out that explanatory framework and look at something else. Mm-hmm.
Well, it also kind of presupposes that cats think verbally, and not only that, the psychic knows that language.
Well, I think the psychic will say they're in touch with the cat's inner kitten, responding to the cat's emotional state. And I have a hard time with that because I just don't see any evidence for it. And I think that there are a lot of other things that are going on, people projecting their own desires and so forth. But I'm an empiricist. Give me the evidence. I'm like James Randi, under controlled conditions. Let's see it. This is what really upsets people. We can understand art, literature, philosophy, the higher side of mind, by expressions of these underlying mechanisms that were selected for, basically because whatever the underlying mechanisms that we have, we got them because they enhanced reproductive success. And, I'm quoting E.O. Wilson on this. I'm not saying this. I know I'm on camera, and I think I'm quoting this correctly. When E.O. Wilson suggested everything we do, capital E, capital V, bolded, everything we do is in order to get laid. Whether we realize it or not, whether we end up being successful in our reproduction or not, our behaviors are more likely to lead to successful reproduction than not. That's how we got here. That's basically the bottom line. And so, as Pinker pointed out, some critics say, you have come into our vaulted cathedrals of art, literature, and philosophy and spray painted sex and competition, resources. You have degraded us. Really? I fail to see where there's any degradation in sex and competition. Another comparison to help you out, and I know I'm going a little long, so I'm going to go a little faster. The standard social science model, this is basically cultural anthropology, most of psychology, and it's still most of psychology today. I'm a cognitive psychologist. Cognitive psychologists also tend to continue to agree with the standard social science model that the mind has little or no predetermined